Right, it is a Wednesday, and we know that Razorback baseball is still continuing on, and we got to recap a little bit of Globe Life and their performance down there, as well as a huge offensive showing against Grambling yesterday, and continuing on the season. And who better to talk about it than with former Razorback Tyler Spoon, who joins us now on the John Nabors Show, thanks to the Bank of Fayetteville right here in downtown Fayetteville. What's up, Tyler? How you doing, man?
What's up, John? We got some good stuff to talk about this week.
Yes, plenty of good stuff to talk about, and I want to talk. I mean, we're going to go all over the place in this because there's a lot to get to, but we'll start Globe Life, and we'll do some takeaways from it. But the main story was Hagen Smith.
Yeah.
That performance against Oregon State, 17 strikeouts, 70-some-odd pitches, 8 of the first 18 outs, 7. I mean, I have never seen anything like that. You've played baseball. You watched baseball. Have you seen anything like that?
No, I have not seen anything that dominant. I mean, there were times probably where Skeens looked that dominant last year, but I even then, it's just to just mow them down. And this isn't like an Oregon State lineup that's, like an average Pac-12 lineup. This is like leadoff guy, number 3 overall pick projected right now. I mean, it's a stacked Oregon State lineup. I mean, Bazana, Bazana's his name, but going 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts against Hagen, and looking like he had no idea what was going on in the box. And then he turns around the next day, and I think he has 3 for 4, and I think 1 or 2 homers, but the dude rakes. And so it just speaks volumes to what Hagen was doing to that lineup and how good he was. But, yeah, it was man, it's just he's like Chris Sale 2.0 is what to me is the stuff. Not as quiet, the arm slot's not as low as Chris Sale, but the stuff, the velocity, the slider. I mean, it's identical to me. So
well, and even something that I loved about it being there and just seeing it in person was cool, but it wasn't like that there was just some crazy pitch that he was throwing that they couldn't figure out. And it wasn't like, just that maybe the umpire had some so-and-so call. Like, these guys were striking out swinging. Like, that's to me, of course, anytime you have 17 strikeouts, it's impressive. But that puts it to a whole nother level where there was nothing gimmicky. There was no, bad calls. It was strictly these guys saw a pitch. They liked the pitch. They swung at the pitch, and they didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, and that's that's a big stat they keep track of a lot now is the whiff percentage or whatever. But it just shows how electric the stuff is. It really does. I mean, it's one of those things. It's hard to describe to people that maybe haven't been in the box before. But the spin rates and all that stuff that's more of a huge factor now with pitchers. That stuff is real, and it gives you a little bit more of a value. And you can quantify a little bit what the pitcher's doing and why guys are doing what they're doing. But with the spin rate that's so high, the ball kind of stays flat and almost looks like it's rising in the box. And, guys are always swinging underneath it, and they have no idea why. Or the slider that just has a ton of spin on it that just, has 18 inches of break or whatever it is. There's, more information to quantify that stuff. But his stuff is just off the charts. And that's why you see so many people swing and miss, and they can't hit it because the numbers and the spins, it's, better than Major League average, and probably better than, top 20% of major league pitchers. So it's pure electric. It's awesome.
Yeah, and to do it in that regard, like against Oregon State, a really good team, and do it in Globe Life, I think everybody, scouts-wise, were probably already really big on Hagen Smith, but the amount of scouts that I saw there too, like that's the type of stuff and that's the type of performance where I don't think we have to worry about Hagen Smith coming back for another year at any time soon. I think he's probably going to go to the pros and probably be a pretty high draft pick. Yeah,
enjoy it while you can. I mean, it's not crazy to say he has a very legitimate chance to be the first guy taken this year. I mean, you get a lefty that's, and Hagen's he's a big kid. People may not have stood next to him, but he's every bit of 6'3". I mean, he's a big kid, left side, 98, touch 99, wipeout slider, good changeup. I mean, that's the makeup of a first overall pick. And then you do what you did to the projected number 3 overall pick. Just, I mean, I know Chase Burns is up there as well, and there's gonna be a few others that emerge as well that aren't even close to the top right now. But it's hard to look at every single person in college baseball and say this guy's better than Hagen Smith. That's after what he did. I mean, obviously he's not going to do what he did every night, but even if he does 60% of what he did the other night, and the ERA is under 2.5 or something, very, very legitimate case he's the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I even was talking to Will McIntyre, and I talked to some other baseball players, and a lot of them brought up that, to be a great athlete and to, usually play certain positions in baseball, like, if you're a first baseman, nobody usually says, the first baseman's the greatest athlete we have on the team.
Yeah.
But there are certain positions. But from what I hear and what these guys say, they say Hagen Smith might be even the greatest athlete on the team, which, again, it's not like saying that pitchers aren't athletic, but it just, again, showing his height and his ability out there on the mound, but also just the sheer athleticism and endurance that he has to go into late games too is huge.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say it for the record, pitchers aren't that athletic, so Hagen's repping the brand,
There you go.
But no, it's impressive when you get a pitcher that's that athletic, and I think of a guy like Chris Oliver for us that was just a freak athlete, Jackson Lowry, guys like that were great pitchers but really good athletes. It helps a lot, it says, hey, I can, I've got all the makeup to be a number one pitcher in the big leagues and be an all-star and, potential Cy Young type pitcher down the road. But, it's awesome to hear, you hear so many good things about Hagen, just his personality, his makeup, his athleticism. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens this year and where he goes in the draft and keeping up with him in the future.
What'd you think about the rest of the pitchers, too? Because not only was Hagen Smith, of course, the star of the show, but even the starting rotation, Brady Tiger coming in did a great job. Mason Molina comes in and does a great job. I know it's a long season, a lot of things can happen, but you got to feel pretty good in those types of showings about the starting rotation moving forward, at least for your weekend guys. Yeah,
there was, you see a lot of people on social media that are like, we can't hit. How are we the top 5 team in the country? And then you watch our arms and you're like, okay, this is. As far as pitching staff right now, it's the best team in the country without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, and the offense will obviously come around. There's no question. But yeah, it's special. I mean, it's one of those deals where 2013 was Barrett Aston on Friday at 92, 96, and Ryan Stanek on Saturday at 95, 98, touching 99, 100, and Colby Suggs at the back end of the bullpen. I mean, just again, it's very similar to that. And Trent Daniel was also a part of that group. So many guys that everyone's throwing mid to upper 90s, and it's a different game these days than what it was. Usually, even 10 years ago when I played, it was like you probably have 1, maybe 2 guys. If you're really good, you have 3 guys that can touch 95, 96. And now it's just arm after arm after arm, and Arkansas just keeps throwing them out there. So, it's Tiger's really he's honestly, for me personally, I wasn't sure what to expect from Tiger, but he's shown so much for me just as a starting pitcher, being able to pitch and just really work the hitters and be a little bit more of an artist with his pitching. He's been really impressive, and then Molina as well. He's kind of got the track record at Texas Tech, so it's just a lethal combo. I really like our pitching staff, to say the least.
Speaking with former Razorback Tyler Spoon here on the John Nabors Show, thanks to the Bank of Fayetteville here in downtown Fayetteville. Tyler, I know that he wasn't there when you were playing, and I don't know how much interaction you had with him, but since we're on pitching, Matt Hobbs seems to be a guy that he just gets it, and obviously he's been at Arkansas for a long time, which assistant coaches usually don't stay around if they're having a lot of success because they end up getting better jobs. But just from what you've seen from him in the years that he's been at Arkansas and developing these guys, what stands out to you as far as his ability not only to recruit but also to develop these guys and make them, by the time they get to year 2, 3, they're really throwing their best stuff.
Yeah, he's special. People probably take for granted, just how good him and Thompson both are. Hobbs was at Wake Forest before this, and I think he had a really big part in implementing a lot of what they're doing now, which you obviously see the result of what they are now. You look at 2 of the best 5 pitching staff in the country. It's Arkansas and Wake Forest are right there, but he does a great job of recruiting the style of pitcher and the body type and the frame, everything he's looking for. He knows exactly what he's looking for, and he knows exactly what he can do with that pitcher, and he maximizes every bit of that player. So he is and a phenomenal human being too. From everything I've gathered, just a really, really great guy. The couple times I've met him, just down to earth, very low key, very relaxed, but just a wizard. You tell that mind's spinning and something's always going. But yeah, just an incredible pitching coach and knows exactly what he's doing and how to get the most out of every player that comes through.
Now, I'm glad we had the game against Grambling yesterday, because if not, we were going to have to talk about the entirety of this offense. But we will talk about it in Globe Life and going back to it.
Indeed.
It was frustrating, to say the least. Against Oregon State, that was just a great baseball game. You're going against their ace. But then against Oklahoma State, going to 14 innings and going 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. And then against Michigan in the final game, a team that you should probably tee off a little bit against, you only muster up 4 runs. I think there was a time in the game where Arkansas had 3 runs on 1 hit. So I get it's early. I think everybody's saying that it'll work itself out. But that was not what I'm sure Nate Thompson and especially Dave Van Horn wanted to see from his offense down in Globe Life.
Yeah, and like you said, the Oregon State game was the offense I don't even look at because that's an SEC Friday night top 5 matchup. Could be a College World Series Final Four type game. That's in a 5-4 game. We just scrapped it and found a way to win. That's what you do. But definitely Saturday. Oklahoma State, and also Oklahoma State has some good pitchers. It wasn't like they may have thrown their best. He may end up being their best guy, but they were really, really good. But at the same time, we did not. We had plenty of chances, and it didn't happen. And same with Michigan. Michigan on Sunday should have taken advantage of that. And it's frustrating because we had so many opportunities. It's not that technically we didn't hit the whole weekend. We just had so many opportunities, and there's run producers and there's run scorers, and right now we just don't have a lot of run producers. So we got to find those guys. And so regardless, offensively it's frustrating. I get it as a fan, like we didn't score, but that stuff does come around. I would be way more concerned if we weren't getting anybody on base and it was just a strikeout after strikeout and no one getting on base, no one drawing walks, but we had opportunities, we just didn't capitalize on them, and that's, as a coach, as a fan, it's frustrating, and it's just could be a bad approach for guys, and not saying like they're not being taught a good approach or anything. That's just saying the game can speed up really really quick on guys, and so you just get outside of your comfort zone when the guys are in scoring position, or you kind of veer away from your approach, whatever it is. So again, as the season goes along, guys get more comfortable. That stuff starts to happen, and you'll see a lot more production, I think.
I think it's an interesting deal where you have, like the hitting that gets better. I look at Aloy, for instance.
Yeah.
He has not started very well, and he was a guy that in scrimmages just was cranking them.
Yeah.
And I keep, as well as many people, looking back to like Caleb Cowley last year, where he started off rough, but he got it going. Is that a lot more common than what people even realize sometimes, though, with hitters, especially guys that are new and guys that are like in scrimmages, man, they're cranking in, and Baum Walker going up against their own guys, they're looking good. But I guess maybe when the lights come on, when it starts being real games, there's a little bit of an adjustment period. Is that a lot more common than what people even realize? Yeah,
especially in Vahiva's situation. It's like coming from Sacramento State, and not knocking Sacramento State. It's just different. Yeah. It's just different here than it is at Sacramento State. And a guy as hyped up as he was, there's probably a lot of pressure on him. He probably feels that pressure, and he's probably just trying to overperform when if he just stays within himself, kind of deal, and he is who he is. That stuff will kind of even itself out. But I understand the pressure he probably feels as a player and a hitter. It's like, okay, I'm coming from Sacramento State to Arkansas, the SEC top 3 program. I've got to show why I'm the starting shortstop, and projected high draft pick kind of deal. So probably just putting a lot of pressure on himself, and that's what it looks like to me too. It looks like he's probably just pressing a lot and just kind of taking uncomfortable swings, not taking his normal swings, and that stuff irons itself out. It may be he may go through a stretch where he's 10 for 12. That's going to happen probably. But yeah, at the beginning of the year, it's very common to see guys just scuffle like Callie did last year, and then eventually, once they get comfortable and they just kind of forget about all the noise and just try to do their thing, they'll figure it out and it'll start rolling.
I know it was Grambling State, but Arkansas was able to win 21-1. Run ruled and got out of the 6th inning, and it's not a game that's we probably be playing in Globe Life, but does a game like that though make the confidence maybe a little bit higher and help out a little bit?
Yeah.
Just being able to say, okay. Yeah, it may not have been against a team like an Oregon State, but still kind of settling in and showing, hey, we can still score, we can still got it, we could still make this work.
Yeah, and I think that's the first thing I thought. Jason Jones, if a guy like that can get going, that just adds another. Again, we've already talked about this. He has the potential to be a 20 home run guy this year. I mean, the power you guys obviously saw. It's there. Everything's there. The tools are there. So you hope that maybe a game like this can kickstart those guys and maybe get them rolling, get some confidence at the dish. But at the end of the day, again, no offense to Grambling, but we did what we were supposed to do, kind of deal. But at the same time, Grambling's picked at the top of the SWAC, and I get it. It's SWAC, and they were throwing a guy that was throwing 60 miles an hour. Like, I get it. It's like, hey, but at the same time, it's not like they're projected to win the SWAC, and so we played really well. At the end of the day, we played really well. We did what we were supposed to do. We hit balls really hard all over the yard, up and down the order. So I'm hoping that kind of kickstarts us and maybe rolls into Murray State and into the next few weekends. So,
well, looking at also those midweek games, with pitchers, it's usually throwing some guys, like some freshmen or some guys that you want to throw. Like Gage Wood pitched a little bit yesterday, Dylan Fouch, and everything. But as hitters, you still go out there and you still perform. I know they ended up adjusting it as the game went on, but what's the approach to those midweek games against teams that you feel like you should dominate? Yeah. Compared to like a weekend series like they just came off, like how do you approach that?
It's hard, and and that's why DVH does a really good job of like trying to basically make sure you're dialed in for those games, because as a player, it's really hard to you come off of an emotional, especially during the middle of the season, SEC play, and you play at Alex Box for 3 games, and it's just pure adrenaline, just emotional rush, just 3 games in a row, and then you come out in the midweek against whoever it is, and you've got 2,000 people there. It's not as loud, not as rowdy, and you're trying to muster up some energy. And the team on the other side of the field, this is their Super Bowl. Sometimes it's like this is what they are waiting for their entire season, to play at Baum Stadium, to play against Arkansas, and so they've got a little bit more grit and determination to try to win. So. I would be lying if I said it was easy to get up and get ready to play those games sometimes, but you've got to find a way to do it. You just got to lock in, not try to do too much, not be lazy. But the guys did I was really happy to see how well they did, the other day or yesterday. So,
do you remember, was there a time when you were playing that you guys lost a midweek game that you shouldn't have, and it was kind of a very eye-opening moment, maybe?
We didn't lose, but it was Mississippi Valley State. We won 3-2, and it was like, oh boy, like I don't. They may have won 10 games that year. It was rough, and again, 2015 we started off 11-12. Like we were terrible the first half. So, but yeah, that was an eye opener, and DVH was not pleased, to say the least. So, that was a game for me that was an eye opener. It was like, oh gosh, we gotta figure this out. So.
Yeah, I think what was it, Lipscomb last year, I think was one of those. It was out at Dickey Stevens Park that, from what I understand, is the one that Arkansas lost, but it was also one that DVH was not too thrilled about in the performances. So I guess it's just interesting to see, how it is. It's one of the things you say, it's just baseball. Baseball happens, but there is still sometimes some performances that, no, it's not just baseball. You just didn't play well. Like you just didn't do what you were supposed to do. And that's what those midweek games are always interesting, because not saying they're a crapshoot and it happens all the time, but sometimes, those midweek games will get you or sneak up on you or something like that. I mean, it happens pretty often, it seems like, to baseball teams.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just so easy to kind of check out after a big series like that in Globe Life and just not be ready to play. So it's tough. So the midweek game, again, that's why DVH doesn't like to play them too much towards the later half of the season. Likes to do it more at the first half, and just because he knows how hard it is to get up for those games and get ready, but also we can get more rest in between SEC weekends. So yeah, you got to be careful with those, and they did a good job of not letting that one sneak up on them.
I know we're getting close to about 10 games so far this year, and there's a lot of games to play, but is there a particular player that's maybe surprised you, or somebody that you didn't know much about before, but now you know a lot more about? Like, just who has really stood out to you other than the obvious ones on this team?
I think Helfrich for me, and I'd heard about him, but I hadn't seen him. But people realize people need to go watch a major league catcher in spring training and then go watch Ryder Helfrich catch a game. There's not a lot of difference when it comes to one, the body. He's huge. I mean, he doesn't look like a freshman, but the receiving part of catching is such a hard thing to master, and he looks like a big leaguer. It's crazy. So he, for me, is a guy that I'm over the moon impressed with. Just as a guy that played catcher in pro ball, I understand how difficult it is to one catch but make it look that good. And as a 19, 18-year-old kid, however old he is, to be able to do that at such a high level, and he's just the big, strong, physical presence and can swing the bat really well. Really impressed with that kid. And that's a guy that you could see the second half once he kind of calms down and gets all the you know, the jitters out, the first half, you know, as an 18, 19-year-old kid, he might be a guy that you look up and he's got 10 home runs. So it's I'm really excited to watch him progress and see how you know good he becomes, because there's a lot of upside and a lot of ceiling for him.
Yeah, how do you, if you're Dave Van Horn, like how do you handle having the amount of catchers that they do? Because we've seen, you know, we got Parker Rowland, who caught last year, and then you got Hudson White, who, you know, was a catcher, and they brought him in, and you know, he had his struggles of just, as you said, receiving the ball in there and go by, but then also Ryder Helfrich. Like, is it something to where you think that they'll settle in on just one catcher, or do you think maybe Dave wants to have a little bit of a, you know, maybe taking the burden off of some of these guys? Like, how do you feel you play that when you got three catchers that all can bring something different to the table? Yeah,
I think that's a good question. I don't know how he'll play it, but you will see Hudson White and Helfrich in the lineup a lot. I know. I mean, just watching those two guys play, they can really swing it and they can really catch. So they're going to get a lot of opportunities, and it may be a deal where one of them ends up DHing the whole time, but they're both really good, and I could see both of them just splitting time behind the dish just to give one a break, or just to rotate it in and out. And so yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
you know, I don't feel like we've had a problem like this where we have four catchers and three legitimate ones that could play at any point. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. So it's again, good problem to have, and we'll see how it works out.
So you said that you were catching a little bit in minor league. So how did that come about? Like what happened there?
I'm 5'10", 195 pounds, so I didn't project as an outfielder, and I didn't have a lot of power like Benny did. So it was crazy. A lot of as the draft came along, it was like a lot of people were, hey, we'll take you in the top, you know, take you in the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds for, you know, $500 and a plane ticket kind of deal, or, you know, hey, we'll give you some money for a, you know, if you want to come be a second baseman or a catcher. And I'm like, oh, gosh, well, you know, kind of got down to the second half of the draft, and I'm like, okay, like I'll do whatever, just whoever wants to do it. So the Red Sox called, and they were just like, hey, we want you to catch. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll give it a go. So, you know, looking back at it, I know I probably wasn't happy in the moment, but I understood where they were coming from, where I get that my profile didn't project as a major league outfielder. You know, my tools were pretty across the board, pretty average. You know, I could hit a little bit, and I had a really good arm. That was my. I had a really, really good arm. That was like probably my best tool. So it just kind of worked out to where I was behind the dish. And you know, if I had, you know, the thing about catching is, if you're a reliable catcher and you can just, you know, do a good job, call a good game, and get the trust of the pitchers, and you can, you know, as a minor league catcher, especially if you can give it 7 years, you're probably going to make it to the big leagues, just because guys get hurt all the time. Catchers don't last as long. Catchers don't hit. So it's just a constant rotation of catchers. So, but yeah, it's such a valuable position. Yeah, it kind of just shook out that way in the draft.
Well, because I was wondering, had you ever played catcher before at that point in time?
So I played a little bit in high school, so mainly because no one else could catch, kind of deal. So it was, you know, caught Brandon Moore. So I caught Brandon Moore in high school. So, but yeah, it was a learning curve, especially taking, you know, gosh, 5 years off of not catching, and then all of a sudden you're thrown in catching 98 miles an hour from, you know, a kid from the Dominican Republic that has no idea where the ball's going. It's like, oh man, this is a shock to the system. So, yeah, catching is a tough position to learn, but that's again why it's so valuable.
I want to ask you too about a hot topic in the debates about going back to Hagen Smith, win-loss record for pitchers, because he did not get the win. But it's one of those things where some people are like, it's the most pointless and useless stat of all. What do you make of the win-loss record for pitchers?
I mean, if I'm a scout and evaluator, the last thing I'm looking at is a win-loss record. You know, I mean, maybe it comes into a play at some point, but you know, you're taking a pitcher for his tools, and especially a guy like Hagen. You're not drafting him because he could win 10, 12 games. You're drafting him because he could throw 99 from the left side with a wipeout slider. You know, that's why you're drafting Hagen Smith. So, not as valuable as people, you know, make it out to be, essentially. So yeah, I'm on that side where it's a great pat on the back to have it, you know, if you have a great win record, but you know, also means you could just have a really, really good offense. So, but yeah, it kind of like, it reminds me of Rick Porcello, I guess probably 7-8 years ago when he won the Cy Young. He had like a 3.5 ERA, but had a really good offense, and ended up winning the Cy Young because he had 20-something wins. So, but yeah, win-loss record for me, I'm not big on it. So,
so why do they keep it? I guess just to say that's another stat to throw in there. I don't know, because I feel like any other sport, team sport at least, does a single individual, it's like, okay, well, here's your win-loss record.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like it's such a weird thing to even think about and even do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, hey, from back in the day, just a stat
baseball,
they've always
man.
kept. It's baseball.
Yeah.
So
that's what
things.
That's what I got to chalk it up to, because I'm starting to learn a lot more about baseball stuff. Like, I mean, I didn't realize that if you try to bunt and you foul on strike 3, or on strike 2, then it's an out.
Yeah.
See?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that. I thought I was still in Little League, where, you get as many times as you want to out there to try to make it work. So I know that Arkansas's got, I believe it's McNeese State this weekend, but still some non-conference games before they get set up there for SEC play. Just what do you want to see more from the team, or maybe some things you want to see continuing to develop right before SEC player? Because obviously you played a few years. Like, what's that building into that, and then once SEC plays, and just the difference that makes from non-con to getting into the real stuff?
Yeah, I think what I want to see is just I want to see those guys that step up and say, okay, I'm going to take this position. There's still quite a few positions that are wide open. There's not a solidified starter at every spot right now. So you're looking for those guys to just step up and just say, hey, I'm going to take this. This is mine, kind of deal. So. But yeah, just for the offense to continue to progress, it's definitely going to be, once SEC rolls around, I think you'll start to see guys. That's when you start to see guys emerge and start to establish themselves. Edmondson's a guy that hadn't played much that looked really good yesterday. That they've talked about quite a bit, that could end up playing left field every day. So, but also just from the pitching side, I think you just want to see you want to see the same thing you just saw every single weekend. That would be ideal, but we know that's obviously going to be impossible almost to replicate what we just did this past weekend. So, but I think just for the pitchers to continue to progress and just see the young guys gain more confidence, and be able, Gackle's going to be a guy that, hey, it's 8th inning, LSU, game 3, we got a 1-run lead, come in and shut the door. So. It was good for him to get that experience this last weekend. So, those are just a couple things I'm looking for. But I think more than anything for me is the offense just continuing to progress. And every year, it always shakes out. It always works out in the end. And, we may look really bad for the first 15, 20 games offensively and can't score a run. But then you look up in game 35, 45, and it's like, okay, I like where we're at. So.
Well, and I also wanted to bring this up with you too. We when we went down, we had a chance to talk with some of the players before, like it's on Thursday before the game, and just they were out there practicing, and we were talking about traditions that they had before they getting out there. And Hagen Smith said he has to have Jersey Mike's, and he has to have the Italian sandwich with no tomato.
Yep.
He has to have that. Gage Wood went a little extra, where he says that he doesn't change his underwear. He wears the same pair of underwear. And I think he had something else that he has to do. But the point is, I think it's interesting. But for you, like, was there anything, it's even whether it was something you did or maybe one of your teammates did, that was kind of outlandish when it came to traditions like that?
Everyone does something crazy. It's for me, I was a guy that, if I tape my wrists and I went 3 for 4 that game, I was doing the same thing the next day. And I would keep doing that deal until I had a really bad game. Like, all right, I got to switch it up. Yeah. So it just depends, whether it was wearing the same thing to the field that day, wearing the same shoes, the same hat, or just, wearing an armband instead of tape, or wearing long sleeve, short sleeve. So you just, every guy's got something. Yeah, whatever it takes to where it's all mental. It's just making yourself feel comfortable.
Yeah,
so.
I just laugh because it's like, man, the specifics of Hagen's, and just, it has to be Jersey Mike's, it has to be Italian, it has to have no tomato. But I'm like, man, if you're throwing 17 strikeouts a game, you better, if there's not a Jersey Mike's in the area, you better go find one.
I may start eating Jersey Mike's at that rate.
Yeah, seriously, it's maybe something in it too. So, but Tyler, before I let you go, man, just Bank of Fayetteville, what you guys got going on over there, and know it's always different times of year where it gets busier and whatnot. But what's going on over at Bank of Fayetteville right now?
Yeah, man, we're just, we're definitely just getting into the community and trying to get involved with the community as much as possible. And especially there's a really big, feeling from our bank this year. We're really just trying to invest in Northwest Arkansas and Fayetteville and invest in the people more than anything, and we want to help this area grow as much as possible. We want to help people grow individually as well. So we're just looking to establish, banking relationships and help in whatever ways we can as a bank. And I know banks, they can get a bad rap. I get that. So, but being a small community local bank, being in the heart of Fayetteville, we're just so invested in this community, and we want to see this community thrive, and we want to see this community grow and the people of Northwest Arkansas grow. So we're just really trying to find ways and avenues that we can invest in people and the community and just help people out.
Yeah, well, I was really happy about being able to walk around downtown Fayetteville and with the weather. But today it's weird. It's like freezing cold outside, so I'm about tired of it. But at least we're not playing baseball today.
No kidding.
Yeah, we got a good weekend in front of it. But Tyler, as always, man, we appreciate you joining us and appreciate Bank of Fayetteville being a part of it. And look forward to catching up with you next week, talking a little bit more ball.
Sweet, sounds good. Thanks, John.